All right, I'm going to start the event now.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Leanne Greenlee, and I am in Ohio EPA's Division of Materials and Waste Management, and I'll be the moderator for today's workshop. Thank you for joining us for the Transfer Facility 101 virtual training. This workshop was made possible with assistance from the Cuyahoga County Board of Health and Rumpke Waste and Recycling. The workshop is being recorded and will be made available through Ohio EPA's Health Department Learning Plan and Ohio Learn at a later date. For today's workshop, we have requested 1.5 CEUs of Registered Environmental Health Specialist credits. If you want to receive credits for this workshop, you must complete the survey posted in the live Q&A after the workshop concludes. If you're not able to access the survey, please email myself at leanne.greenlee@epa.ohio.gov or Jeff Montavon at jeffrey.montavon@epa.ohio.gov, and we will send a link to the survey following today's training. In case you have missed it, Ohio EPA DIMLM has developed an online learning plan for local health departments. Through the OHID Citizens Portal, local health department staff can register for Ohio EPA's Health Department Training Plan in the Ohio Learn app. The training plan includes past workshops hosted by Ohio EPA. New workshops such as today's Transfer Facility 101 training will be added in the future. Training is available online and can be completed at the learner's convenience. When completing today's course survey, there is an option you may select to be added to the Health Department training plan. Simply click the box to opt in and provide your email address. Local health department staff must have an OHID account to access the training. We can send instructions on creating an account if you don't currently have an account. After your OHID account has been created, we will send additional instructions on accessing the Health Department training plan. The learning plan is a great educational opportunity for both new and experienced solid waste inspectors. All participants joining today's workshop are set to mute. If you have questions during the training, please type them in the live event Q&A. You may also email your questions to me at leanne.greenlee@epa.ohio.gov. As time allows, questions will be answered at the end of each presentation. If we run out of time during the question and answer period, we will reach out to you with a response following today's workshop. For those who've just joined us, a reminder that this workshop has been requested for 1.5 CEUs of Registered Environmental Health Specialist credits. If you want to receive credits at this workshop, you must complete the survey posted in the live Q&A, and if you're not able to access the survey, please email me or Jeff Montavon to receive a link. So to start today's webinar, we will have Dylan Dyer providing an overview of transfer facilities.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to an overview of transfer facilities.
Dylan is an inspector at our Southwest District office. All right, we are ready for Dylan's presentation.
My name is Dylan Dyer. I'm an environmental specialist too, working out of the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency's Southwest District office for the Division of Materials and Waste Management. My presentation is going to serve as a simple overview, covering some of the notable highlights of transfer facilities. I'll endeavor to keep things straightforward and leave the fine details for later presenters. In light of that, let's ignore the environmental specialist title and just say I'm an inspector for the moment. So what is a transfer facility? Where do they come from? Why do we need them? How are they doing? All in good time. Let's start with an age-old agency tradition. Here's the definition of a solid waste transfer facility as it appears in Ohio Administrative Code 3745-2701, as well as OAC Rule 3745-555-02. Solid waste transfer facility or transfer facility means any site, location, tract of land, installation, or building that is used or intended to be used primarily for the purpose of transferring solid waste that are generated off the premise of the facility from vehicles or containers into other vehicles or containers for transportation to a solid waste disposal facility. As previously stated, I'll leave the rest of the fine details to others, but what does this really mean for the average person? Well, what it means is a solid waste transfer facility, or colloquially a transfer station, is a place where solid waste are transferred. Not produced or disposed of, simply transferred. Trash goes in, trash goes out. Of course, that's just a starting point. If you know codes, you know nothing is ever quite that simple, but it's what we're going to stick with for a few minutes. So here's a nice little aerial to illustrate what exactly you can expect from a transfer facility. Primarily an enclosed building where the waste transferring takes place. Inside, you'll find a tipping floor where wastes are deposited by incoming vehicles or containers, consolidated, then put into larger vehicles or containers heading towards a solid waste disposal facility, usually a municipal solid waste landfill. You can also expect scales for the weighing of incoming and outgoing vehicles transferring the waste, as well as agency appropriate signage and surface water controls. Here are some transfer facilities in the Southwest District I personally have experience with. Miami County Solid Waste and Recycling Facility, located, no surprise, in Miami County and run by Miami County. I was the inspector for this facility for many years, and consequently I've grown rather fond of it. This facility also featured in my previous aerial photograph, as well as a fun little treat at the end of this presentation. You can note the two highlights of a transfer facility that I had mentioned before: the building in which operations take place on the left, and the tipping floor where wastes are deposited on the right. They're deposited and consolidated into a larger vehicle to be transferred. In these pictures, you'll see Republic Services Evendale Transfer Station, located in Hamilton County and run by Republic Services. This is inspected by our approved health district, Hamilton County Public Health, who kindly provided these photos. Already you can see a few minor differences from the previous facility: more vehicle bays and less space on the tipping floor, as opposed to one large building through which the incoming traffic moves. Trucks and containers will back into these bays to deposit their load on the tipping floor. And the last transfer facility I'd like to highlight is Montgomery County South Transfer Facility in Montgomery County and run by Montgomery County. It's inspected by another one of our approved health districts, Montgomery County Public Health, who also provided these photos. While this facility is at face value much more similar to the Miami County transfer facility, there's a big difference in traffic and waste flow. According to the 2021 annual reports submitted to Ohio EPA, the Montgomery County transfer facility transferred almost 700,000 tons of solid waste during that calendar year, as opposed to Miami County's 120,000 tons and Evendale's 130,000 tons. All this is to say what some of you already know very well. Though the laws and rules by which we regulate these facilities may be the same, every facility is different. They each have their own operational needs and intricacies. And while this presentation will serve as an overview, you should certainly keep in mind that every facility is special in its own way. Although I've been mainly focused on things like the main operational building and the tipping floor, there are some other very important features of transfer facilities you should know about. One is the scales. The transfer facility rules require all waste to be measured by scales. Generally speaking, you will see a scale house manned by facility staff managing the incoming and outgoing traffic. Another is the signage. This may not seem like a big deal at first blush, but let me tell you, we take our signage very seriously, specifically because it outlines what material is not accepted at transfer facilities. I won't go down the whole list, but some notable highlights include radioactive waste and PCBs. The final feature I want to highlight, though not the only one common to transfer facilities, is the big tunnel. This is where the trucks bound for municipal solid waste disposal facility park and wait while they are loaded up with the consolidated waste from the tipping floor. In most places, this will be below grade, specifically below said tipping floor. As you can imagine, this makes moving the waste from the tipping floor into the truck much easier. In the interest of engagement, I have a short video I'd like to show you, courtesy of Miami County. It's my understanding that captive audiences tend to pair very well with some visual stimuli, so I'll go ahead and let the video play along with its wonderful soundtrack and voiceover.
Have you ever wondered? Each week we see the trash containers lining the streets. Have you ever wondered what happens to it next? Here in a quiet neighborhood in Troy, Ohio, we see neatly placed carts ready to be picked up. So now what? Enter Troy's side load truck. At the transfer station, we consolidate waste for efficient trucking, thus reducing the amount of vehicles making the trip to the landfill. Here we see a sanitation truck unloading their refuse. It is then pushed into a top-load transfer trailer and tamped for trucking. But this is not the end of the road. Our trash is about to begin its journey to its final destination, the landfill. From here, it will begin a 50-mile journey to Bellefontaine, Ohio, home to Republic's Cherokee Run landfill. After weighing in at the scales, these trucks drive the access lane to the active tipping side. Near the trailer tipper, the driver untarps the load and backs onto the trailer tipper. Disconnecting the truck, this machine lifts the trailer up to unload. As the trailer is lowered down, the compactors and bulldozers come in to level the refuse and compact it to conserve space. Cherokee Run is the contracted landfill with Miami County to accept all of our refuse. Even with the current tonnage being hauled to the facility daily, life expectancy is more than 20 years. The Miami County Solid Waste District is committed to its recycling programs to aid in landfill reduction. Working with residents, commerce, and industry, Miami County is meeting or exceeding its recycling goals as outlined by the Ohio EPA. Thank you for taking the journey with us today, watching our refuse go from curbside, through the countryside, to the landfill. We hope you have enjoyed watching this.
I hope you all found that video as educational and entertaining as I did the very first time I saw it. Very quickly, let's shift focus and cover some big things that are not transfer facilities. This will be covered more in depth later on, but I wanted to hit some highlights. One would be a facility that consists solely of portable containers and have an aggregate volume of 50 cubic yards or less. What this means is waste transferred from one small container to another, no waste sitting on the ground. Another would be any facility where legitimate recycling activities are conducted. There are some caveats and specificity to this one I won't be going into at this time. As you can understand, what exactly constitutes a legitimate recycling facility would be a presentation unto itself. And another highlight is any facility that accepts scrap tires other than scrap tires that are incidental to solid waste shipments. What that latter half means is they're allowed to get a couple scrap tires that are in their solid waste loads that had to be segregated, but not whole loads of scrap tires. Scrap tires are considered solid waste. However, they have their own special set of rules and dedicated facilities that are completely distinct from transfer facilities. And as above, there's enough detail to that that could constitute a presentation on its own. Thank you all very much for your time and attention thus far. I will now leave it to my fellow presenters to get into the finer details of transfer facilities, transfer facility inspections, transfer facility permitting, and a waste industry perspective on transfer facilities. However, if there are general questions you'd like to throw at me at this time, I will be happy to answer any and all of them. Although I should caution you, if it is a subject that is covered by a later presenter, I won't spoil anything for you.
All right. Thank you, Dylan. For anyone who has questions for Dylan, please remember you can type them into the live Q&A and we will ask him those. I do have a couple questions for you, Dylan. The first one I received is, are transfer facilities required to be under a roof?
And the answer to that is yes. Actually, with the current transfer facility rules, so the transfer facilities have to be conducted within an enclosed building, transfer operations, I should say. So yes, you have to have a roof and at least 3 walls plus a wall that can close up at the end of the day. Now, obviously, there's variances, exemptions, and things can change, but that's generally speaking, yeah, you're gonna have a roof.
Okay, I have another one. Can recycling activities take place at a transfer facility?
And the answer to that is yes. Recycling facilities can take place at a transfer facility. However, they should be distinct and properly segregated from transfer facility operations. That is to say, if you are recycling cardboard, for example, it needs to not be commingled with solid waste on the waste handling floor.
Okay, I don't see any other questions for you at the moment. So with that, we will move on to our next presentation. It is with Annette de Havilland on transfer facility permitting. Annette is our lead engineer with Ohio EPA's Division of Materials and Waste Management here in Central Office. Annette, we're ready when you are.
I'm Annette de Havilland, lead engineer for the Division of Materials and Waste Management in Central Office, and I have been in the solid waste program for a long time. I do a lot of guidance document development, rule development, support on technical issues and the like. So let's talk about what transfer facilities need to get a permit. First off, it really does need to be a transfer facility, which, by the way, if it's a yard waste only transfer facility, they don't need a permit. But if you do have a transfer facility and it's new, they need to get a permit. Or if it's an existing transfer facility and they're modifying the facility, they need to get a permit for that. The definition of a solid waste transfer facility is used by other programs more than just the transfer facility program. So the definition is found in the multi-program rules, which is Ohio Administrative Code 3745, Chapter 500, Rule 02. So first off, let's talk about what really is a solid waste transfer facility. And looking at the definition, there's two major parts. The definition proper, and then it talks about some exclusions. And I'm actually going to start with the exclusions first. So if you want to start with a solid waste transfer facility, means a facility that transfers solid waste, except for the following. The first exclusion is the portable container exclusion, and there's a couple of important words that describe how that exclusion works. So it's a facility that consists solely of portable containers that have an aggregate volume of 50 cubic yards or less, and the waste cannot be placed on the ground or on the waste handling floor. Now, over the years, we have said if somebody's going to add a hopper or a very simple compacting unit, we're not going to jump in there and say, now you are a solid waste transfer facility. We have said that they still fall under the exclusion. And if they meet everything that's part of the exclusion and they happen to be in a building or happen to have a nice concrete pad, that is not going to trigger them into being a solid waste transfer facility either. But bottom line, no waste on the floor. Some examples of portable containers, mostly what I've seen are roll-offs, but a drum, a tote, if that's what they're using as their transfer container, that's a portable container. Question has come up about empty containers that might be sitting off to the side. That volume does not need to be included, but the key thing is it is the volume of the container, not the volume of waste. So let's say they have a couple of containers and in the aggregate that exceeds the 50 cubic yards, even though the operator says, hey, they're only half full. It's like, that doesn't matter. You just total up all the containers, the volume of the container, to see if it meets that 50 cubic yards or not. Next, we have a couple of exclusions that pertain to recycling. The first one has to do with the more traditional type of recycling facility. Some people call those clean MRFs. A MRF is a materials recovery facility. And these are the types of the facilities that take only source separated recyclables or commingled recyclables that are currently recoverable using existing technology. The other type of recycling facility, what is called a dirty MRF, is where trash is taken to a facility and the recyclables are sorted out. And since we're talking about trash and recyclables mixed together, that proportion of what's recycled versus what needs to go on to disposal is going to, not be as much recyclables. So for this exclusion, we do have a formula in order to fit under the exclusion. The facility would need to recycle at least 60% and dispose of no more than 40%. Now, sometimes a facility will have a bad month, depending on commodity prices, whatever, and that is something that we've recognized. So those limits need to be met 8 months out of the calendar year. There can be a role for the permit here with a dirty MRF situation. We have advised these facilities in the past to get a permit just in case they do not meet the exclusion criteria, meeting that 60-40 limit. Then if they have the permit, they don't need to worry about meeting the siting and design criteria. They've got the permit. They would only need to get the operating license. Something else I want to say about the recycling exclusion is that some of our solid waste transfer facilities basically have divided operations where part of the facility is doing transferring, but part of the facility is also dedicated to recycling. And what we encourage these people to do is on their permit, show what is going to be regulated as a transfer facility and what is not. And as far as facts on the ground, it certainly is helpful if there's something recognizable, if there isn't a wall or something like that separating the two operations, that they put a stripe, something that's easily identifiable so that as the inspector goes out, they can say, okay, this is the transfer side, transfer regulations apply, and this is the recycling side, transfer facility requirements don't apply over here. Then the last exclusion applies to disposal facilities that have some sort of transfer activity occurring at the disposal facility. So we have something in there for our solid waste landfills, scrap tire facilities, and construction and demolition debris facilities. Now I'm going to move into the definition proper, and you can see there's some important parts that I'm highlighting here. A solid waste transfer facility means any site, location, etc., used or intended to be used primarily for the purpose of transferring solid waste that are generated off the premises of the facility from vehicles or containers into other vehicles or containers for transportation to a solid waste disposal facility. And I'm going to be pointing out some features of each of those major parts. Primarily, we have no definition for what primarily means. Can think of it as majority, more than half, something along those lines. So a site that is managing other commodities, other types of waste. As long as the solid waste portion is less than half, we would say that they are not a solid waste transfer facility. And as an aside here, I'll point out that rail facilities are a bit more complicated. They may tick all the boxes for being a solid waste transfer facility, but there are federal statutes that make things a bit tricky, and we need to go through our legal section at our office to figure out if that site is indeed within our jurisdiction or not. So just want to point out that rail transfer points just may be a little bit more difficult or surprising when it comes to figuring out if they are a solid waste transfer facility. Another tricky situation that may come up under that primarily umbrella is if, and I don't know if there's so many cities in Ohio that have this issue, but there are cities where the garbage truck can't actually make it down the street or down the alley. So what they do is they have a smaller vehicle go down, collect the trash, bring that out to a larger vehicle and transfer that waste from the one vehicle into the other vehicle. But where they transfer that waste may not be the primary purpose of that location. So if they're doing it, in a vacant lot, parking lot, side of the road, all those, that's not, it's not like it's fenced off and this is the only thing that happens there. So that would not then trigger into being a transfer facility, even though there are transfer activities that are occurring. But if there is a fence and if that's all that they do, then you can start looking at some of the other exclusions, like that 50 cubic yard exclusion. But anyway, this is an issue that had come up, and this is our response, just in case you have this where you are working. Now, this might be a bit obvious. To be a solid waste transfer facility, they need to be transferring solid waste, not liquid waste, hazardous waste, infectious waste, C&DD, something that is not solid waste. But it has come up on occasion where a facility might be accepting a sludge or something like that, and it's solidified at the facility, and it's then taken to a solid waste disposal facility. And we have determined that that is not a solid waste transfer facility because it's not coming in as solid waste. The next part of the definition I want to address is the generated off the premises. Now, this comes up in such situations as industrial complexes, as well as something as mundane as a shopping center or a mall, where basically you have different collection points, maybe some consolidation going on. It looks a lot like transfer, but it's really all being generated on the same premises. It's not like they're bringing in waste from down the street or something like that. So that would not be a solid waste transfer facility. The other scenario is something that had come up with a company that cleans containers. So it kind of looks like they might be a solid waste transfer facility. They're bringing in containers for cleaning, but the containers have residue in them, which they are transferring out of the container, consolidating, putting into another container for disposal to a landfill. Like I said, looks a lot like solid waste transfer operation. But in this case, we had determined that the generator of the waste is the cleaning company. So it's not like the people sending the containers to be cleaned are saying, hey, take care of this waste. They're saying, hey, take care of my container. Please clean out my container. So we have said that it's that cleaning company that is the waste generator, that they're not transferring waste, that they're actually the generator of the waste. Now this next bit here, from a container or vehicle into another container or vehicle, I do get quite a few questions on this. And I refer to it as, are they transferring waste or are they transferring engines? So for example, a container might be traveling on a railroad car, be lifted off that railroad car and then put on a flatbed truck or something like that. The waste has stayed in the container that whole time. The waste is not being transferred, but that container of waste basically changed engine. So it went from, the railroad engine to the truck engine. Something else that has come up recently is, what about wrapped bales? So we have recently determined that a wrapped bale is containerized. So somebody who is transferring a wrapped bale is transferring containers or engines. They're actually not transferring waste because the waste is not leaving that bale during the transfer activity. And the last bit of the definition to go over with you is the bit about going to a solid waste disposal facility. Now this can come into question if the waste is going through multiple steps between the generator and the disposal facility. And we have determined it really doesn't make a lot of sense to just regulate the last step. So if there are multiple steps leading up to ultimate disposal at a solid waste facility, all those steps are transfer facility steps. So for example, somebody might be baling waste that then goes to another facility where more loads are aggregated, and then it goes to a solid waste facility for disposal. Even that baling operation would be considered a transfer operation because ultimately that waste is destined to go to a solid waste disposal facility. Now that we know what a solid waste transfer facility is, the next thing is to say hello to the permit to install. So the permit to install comes in for a new transfer facility. If they're modifying an existing transfer facility, that application is submitted to Ohio EPA, where we look at the siting, design, financial assurance. It is also submitted to the local board of health. Now, you may be wondering, you have a solid waste transfer facility that gets licensed and does not have a permit, and how in the heck did that happen? Well, back in 1991, which is when we adopted the transfer facility rules, came up with that program, there were facilities already in existence, and we call those grandfathered facilities. It was decided at the time that we were not going to make all those existing facilities come in with a permit. They would just get their annual license. Now, if they modify, then of course they would need to get a permit to do that. While I'm on this slide and talking about the permit to install application, it has happened where we've received a permit and the applicant followed our permit application and looked at our permit review rules, but they were not aware that there's actually more to the business than just what is in rule. There's an applicant's meeting, there's public notice requirements, background check, possibility of other permits. So if they're not aware of these other obligations, they're already right out the gate, struggling with getting their permits. So if in conversation with an operator, if they bring up, or if you want to ask them if they have any modification plans, you can then have them get in touch with us or have us get in touch with them, just so that we can guide them through the process so they can avoid those pitfalls that may not be so obvious just by studying our rules. We do have a definition for what it means to modify a transfer facility, and it is basically to expand the limits of the waste handling area. There's another trigger that would make something a modification to a transfer facility, but we hardly ever get to see it. And there is a bit of a judgment call involved with that. And it is to change the technique of waste receipt or type of waste received that may endanger human health or the environment. So for example, an operation that originally set up to transfer bales then decides that they're going to accept loose waste. You know, is that something that could endanger human health or the environment? And when we figure that out, then we'll figure out if they need a permit or not. It is through the permit application process that we look at the siting of a transfer facility. Important to note that Ohio EPA does not decide where the facility goes. That is what the applicant designates on their permit. And then we check to make sure that that location does meet the siting criteria. Something to note about siting criteria is that some apply to the facility as a whole, and some apply to just the waste handling area. Also, because the permit process can take a while to get through, we do say in there that it is at the time that the permit application is submitted. So if something changes during the review process, the applicant does not need to change their permit to show the new siting situation. We go with what was in existence at the date that the permit was submitted. This slide is an excerpt from one of our guidance documents that looks at our solid waste siting criteria. There's a lot on there, small font, don't necessarily need to read it, but the first row is for the MSW landfills. You can see they have a lot of dots. The second row is for transfer facilities, and for comparison purposes, you can see that they've got 5 dots. Below that, we have infectious waste, composting, incinerator, scrap tire. The table goes on, but you can kind of get a perspective for how siting criteria is applied to transfer facilities as well as our other solid waste facilities. The first siting criterion to address is for parks. We identify a whole bunch of different parks, so it's not your city park with a ball field. It's very specific parks that are subject to the siting criterion. And unique for this one is that according to Ohio statute, we cannot grant a variance or an exemption to allow somebody out of this siting criterion. The second siting criterion is for natural areas. There's a 500-foot setback. Lists very specific items that are nature preserves, wildlife refuges, certain bodies of water. The third siting criterion is for domiciles, and there's a 250-foot setback from a domicile. The fourth siting criterion is for floodplains. Facility cannot be located within a 100-year floodplain, and that is a calculation that needs to be done in the permit application. And the last siting criterion is for surface water. So these are all the surface waters that are not natural areas, and there is a 200-foot setback from these surface waters. We have some design specifications that apply to transfer facilities. So a new facility would need to meet all those design specifications. If they're modifying something, they would just need to make sure that what they're modifying meets the rule requirements. And then other than that, if they make a change that's not a modification, then it still needs to come through the agency. It's just not through a permit, it is through an alteration. The first design specification that we have is that the transfer operation needs to be in a building. That means floor, walls, and a roof. As to the floor, we do pay a lot of attention to its durability and then how leachate is collected and managed through the sloping of the floor, how it's collected through floor drains and the like. And more on leachate management. We do have specifications for any leachate pipes, that they be sized correctly, that they're not going to be breaking very easily, and that they can be easily inspected for leakage. And lastly, if they need a tank for leachate storage, we have specifications for that too. If it happens to be a metal tank, it needs to have corrosion protection. And for the load-out facilities, that needs to be protected from freezing and being knocked about through facility operations, that it's not going to be leaky. And if it does have a spill or something like that, that the spill will be contained. And we have an or other category. So if there's some special feature added to the transfer facility that is integral to the function of a required engineered component, so that would be something to do with the building, the floor, leachate pipes or leachate tank, we can add that and apply our oversight. So construction certification reports, inspection, maintenance, that type of thing would apply to that additional or other item. So for example, the structure, and I don't know anybody doing this or would propose to do this, but let's say they wanted a 3-sided structure and to use an air curtain for the fourth wall. And so that whole apparatus to maintain the air curtain would then become one of these othered engineered structures under our regulations. Some items that are not engineered components, often associated with transfer activities, are balers, shredders, compactors, conveyors, the dozer, type of dozer, fire suppression, any of that kind of stuff are not engineered components. I point that out in particular because some of our older permits, we had required that that information be provided, but we don't do that any longer. And besides siting and design, we also look at financial assurance as part of the permit. The financial assurance cost for closure includes disposal of the solid waste, disposal of the leachate, cleaning up the facility. If that calculation comes to less than $5,000, we do not require the applicant to actually obtain financial assurance for that. We have discovered that financial assurance is expensive and often costs about $5,000. So it just didn't seem worth it for the applicant to obtain financial assurance when the cost of the financial assurance may very well be more expensive than the actual cost of closing the facility. Plus, we figure we can find $5,000 should they walk away from the facility, and we're left to basically clean up that situation. And the last thing I want to say about permits and the permit process is public involvement, which for transfer facilities is a little bit different than what we do for landfills. So if you're familiar with landfills, it's not exactly the same. Transfer facilities do have an applicants meeting. Optional is the Ohio EPA public information session. Also optional is the public hearing. And then of course, the entity or the public or the health department could appeal a decision of the agency. And that wraps up what I wanted to share with you about transfer facility permits, as well as what is a transfer facility. And this is my contact information if you need to get a hold of me.
Great, thank you, Annette. We did get a couple questions in for your presentation, and then there's a couple more that we are going to answer later on. So the first question I have for you is, what are the most common permitting mistakes? Annette, you're still on mute.
There we go. Sorry. I wouldn't characterize this necessarily as being a mistake, but it does appear to be something that, takes a bit more effort on both parts, and that has to do with the financial assurance. And where we have standards, for the siting and the design and all that kind of stuff, how to actually calculate that financial assurance is, we don't have any specific way to do that. So there's a lot of give and take on figuring out, is their calculation a good calculation?
Okay. The next one I see is, what are the most common objections to transfer facilities?
Well, a transfer facility is a solid waste management facility, and with solid waste management facilities in general, people are concerned about leaks, odors, litter, traffic on the road, decreasing property values. Perhaps something unique to transfer facilities, at least from my own personal experience, and so maybe I'm more sensitive. The only rats I have ever seen, I've not seen a rat at a landfill. I have seen rats at transfer facilities and at recycling facilities. So, that might be a bit more of an issue with that type of facility than at a landfill. Oh, and I also wanted to say, I slipped my mind to mention this when I was talking about citing criteria and design, is that the short list of citing criteria that's applied to transfer facilities, it's a short list because we're not addressing groundwater. And the reason we don't address groundwater is we do pay so much attention to the floor and to the way that leachate is managed. So, we kind of balance, our regulation that way. So it's like, it slipped my mind to say that, and I wanted to get that out there. So, and any more questions?
I have a couple more. So this one is on roofing of transfer facilities. Does it need to be a solid structural roof? What about tarps?
The idea is, you want to enclose or you don't want the rain, you don't want the wind, you don't want birds swooping in and out. So the idea is, we're trying to, I don't want to say encapsulate, because we're not encapsulating, but we want to separate the waste and the waste handling floor from, environmental factors that make operations more difficult. If it's windy, the whoosh, out goes the, litter. If it's raining, here comes all this leachate, birds coming in, flying around, taking stuff away. Having, maybe solid is not the best word, but, that's the concept we're shooting for, is we want to keep, that transfer operation, under its best conditions.
Okay, and then I have another one. How is the public notified of a public hearing meeting usually?
Oh gosh, that's a different section that takes care of that. It used to be in the local paper, and I know there's been some discussion as to how many people actually look at their paper anymore. So we've been looking at other avenues for getting, that announcement out there. But, it's like we're having, some public event, we're doing our best, to get that information out there. So if it's not in the paper, it could be on our website, it could be other places, but it's actually a different section that takes care of that. So I'm afraid I'm not that solid on the details for that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Annette, and I'm not seeing any additional questions for you, so we are going to move on to our next presentation. So this will be a two-part presentation. It's the overview of transfer facility inspections. We will have Dane Tussle and Heather Grisey present this overview. Dane is a program manager with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health's Environmental Public Health Services. So Dane, we are ready when you are.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. I hope everybody is doing well today. As mentioned, my name is Dane Tussle, and just to give you a little background about myself, I am a registered environmental health specialist at the Cuyahoga County Board of Health. I began my career back in 1990 at the Board of Health and have served as the program manager of the solid waste program since approximately 1996. During my time at the Board of Health, I have also served as the chairman of the Ohio Environmental Health Association Solid Waste Technical Committee and still remain a member of the committee today. Today I was asked to give a brief overview of our local transfer facility program and discuss some of the administrative responsibilities we have to deal with in this approved Ohio EPA program. As you can see on the slide, the transfer station facility rules can be found in Ohio Revised Code 3734 and the Ohio Administrative Code 3745-555. To get started, I want to give you an idea by numbers of the transfer facilities located in Cuyahoga County. Currently in Ohio, there are approximately 61 licensed transfer facilities. In Cuyahoga County alone, there are 10 licensed facilities. So doing the math, Cuyahoga County has approximately 17% of the transfer facilities in the entire state. And in a few minutes, I'll get into why we believe this is the case. In Cuyahoga County, we have two separate health districts, the Cuyahoga County Board of Health and the City of Cleveland Division of Public Health. Within our jurisdiction, we currently license 9 of the 10 facilities, and the City Health Department license the remaining facility. To break it down a little more, of the 9 facilities we have licensed here are fairly large commercial facilities, which are operated by the major waste companies such as Waste Management, Rumpke, and Republic Services. Our other 4 remaining facilities are city-run facilities in that they only collect and transfer their own city's waste and are generally much smaller facilities. So now I just wanted to take a moment to talk about waste generation. For whatever reason, there's a staggering amount of waste being generated in Cuyahoga County. According to our solid waste management district, there were approximately 1.4 million tons of waste generated in Cuyahoga County. This number was gathered for the 2021 year. 2022 numbers are currently being collected, and we should soon have a more current number. However, we would expect that the 2021 number be representative of what we expect to be generated in 2022. So as you can see, there is a large amount of waste being generated on an annual basis in our county. Now I'd like to take a minute to talk about the reasons why we have so many transfer facilities in our county. First of all, as I mentioned in the beginning, I've been around since the early 90s. During that time, there was a major shift in how our waste is disposed of. In the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s, Cuyahoga County had a large surplus of landfill space. At one point in time, there were approximately 16 active municipal solid waste landfills located throughout our county. These facilities were capable of handling the majority of the waste being generated in the county, and there was very little need for transfer facilities up in our area. However, these landfills were mostly small family-owned facilities. Over time, and with the change in the regulations, these facilities soon ran out of airspace and eventually closed up. Currently, there are no municipal solid waste landfills in the county. As many of you know, Cuyahoga County is an urbanized area. There is virtually no permittable landfill space. We cannot expect to site any new landfills now or in the future. Therefore, transferring our solid waste out of the county has become our only viable option. At this time, nearly all our waste being generated is transferred to large municipal landfills located mainly in Lorain, Stark, Richland, and Tuscarawas County for disposal. Hopefully now you can see that due to a lack of landfill space and large amount of waste being generated, transfer facilities have become so important in our area. And now I'd just like to turn our focus a little bit and talk specifically about our program at the Cuyahoga County Board of Health. As I mentioned earlier, I do manage the program. I oversee the day-to-day activities of the program. Some of my responsibilities include licensing of the facilities, training of our staff, providing guidance, reviewing and tracking reports, maintaining our files, and maintaining relationships with our partners, including the Ohio EPA and our Solid Waste Management District. We currently have a field staff of 5 inspectors, including myself, who are assigned to specific districts around Cuyahoga County. Each inspector or field staff person is responsible for conducting the inspections and following up on any complaints that would be received in their area. In addition, we have access to our in-house general counsel who would be involved in any enforcement cases or other legal matters which may arise. We are currently on Ohio EPA's list of approved health departments, and our program is surveyed on an annual basis by inspectors from the Ohio EPA Northeast District Office. Now I'd just like to talk a little bit about the funding we receive for our program. As everyone knows, funding is always an important issue in any program. We currently receive funding mainly from 2 different sources, one being the license fees for our facilities, and the second being from our Solid Waste Management District. Annually, we receive $750 for each of our 9 transfer facilities through their yearly license fee, which is set in code. As a licensing agent for Ohio EPA, we retain the entire $750 amount, which helps fund our program and offset costs incurred in maintaining our program. Secondly, we also are very fortunate in that we have a good working relationship with the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste Management District. Although they are a separate agency, they provide us funding through a signed contract for up to $160,000 per year. The contract is renegotiated every 3 years. These funds can be used for a variety of purposes, including the oversight and enforcement activities of our transfer facility program. As I mentioned, we are very fortunate to have the contract with the management district. As part of the contract, we are held accountable by preparing a detailed report on a quarterly basis and submitting it to the management district. The report contains information as how many inspections were conducted during the quarter and how much time was put into the program. We are then reimbursed for our services. Along with the quarterly report and to receive funding from the Solid Waste District, we are required to maintain the status of an approved health district in the eyes of the Ohio EPA. Should we lose our approved status, the contract would become null and void. So we do have a lot of incentive to maintain a good and approved program. As I have mentioned on several occasions throughout my presentation, we are an Ohio EPA approved health district. So what does that mean? So in Ohio, any health district that wishes to have and maintain a solid waste program is held to a set of minimum operating standards. Some of these standards include the issuing of facility license on an annual basis, conducting a required minimum number of facility inspections, maintaining complete and accurate files, and initiating enforcement actions against the facility if warranted. In all, there are a total of 11 of these standards which Ohio EPA serves the health district on. The entire list can be found in Ohio Administrative Code 3745-37-08. And as I mentioned, Ohio EPA surveys each health district on an annual basis. Based on the survey results, should the health district meet the minimum standards, the health district would be placed on the Ohio EPA list of approved health districts. If for whatever reason the health district is not meeting the minimum standards, the health district would be removed from the approved list and Ohio EPA would take over the program. Now I would like to talk about the licensing and inspection aspect for facilities and a responsibility as an approved program. Of the 11 standards I noted previously, these two items seem to be of the utmost importance, so I wanted to elaborate on them in a little more detail. Starting out with facility licensing, as mentioned, an approved health district is responsible to license all facility within their jurisdiction. Transfer facilities license are renewed on an annual basis. The total annual license fee is $750. Licensing is done using the Ohio e-business system, which is an online program that is available for Ohio EPA to use, as well as approved health districts and facility owners and operators. The way licensing works is that the owner or operator submits a renewal application on the e-business system. The submittal must be made by September 30th for the following year. In addition to the license submittal, the facility is required to submit a $100 application fee. Once the submittal is made, the health district will be notified and must take action in reviewing the application and ensuring that the application fee has been received. Once the application is deemed to be complete, the health district can move forward in issuing the facility license. Issuing of the license generally occurs toward the end of December. Along with the license, an invoice will be sent to the facility for payment of the remaining $650 balance. The remaining fee is due back to the licensing agent within 30 days of the day the license was issued. So that was a little bit about the licensing requirements. Now I want to finish up by touching on the actual transfer facility inspection requirements. Inspections need to be conducted as often as necessary to ensure the facility is complying with the rules and regulations that govern transfer facilities. In any event, inspections are required to be conducted on at least a quarterly basis. Quarterly inspections coincide with the calendar year, meaning that the first quarter inspection must be conducted between January 1st and March 31st. The second quarter would be from April 1st through June 30th, and so on. Documentation of each inspection is required to be maintained. Besides routine facility inspections, any complaints received must be followed up in a timely manner. It is our policy to respond to any complaints within 24 hours and as soon as possible if the complaint is in regards to odors. And finally, as an approved health district, we are required to maintain complete and accurate files for each licensed facility. This would include any inspection letters, any special conditions, any approved permits, and any complaint investigations that were conducted. And this information must be maintained on site at the health department for review during the annual survey. Okay, so that's really all I had for you today. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm hopeful that you were able to get a little better understanding of our local program up here in Cuyahoga County and the administrative duties that we must deal with on a regular basis. In closing, I would just like to make a couple general comments before I finish up. I'd like to give a shout out to the Ohio Environmental Health Association. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'm a long-standing member of the Solid Waste Technical Committee and have previously served as a chairman for several years. As many of you know, the Ohio Environmental Health Association is our professional association And we do have a significant voice when it comes to 5-year reviews, rule changes, and rule updates. We work very well with the Ohio EPA and are able to voice our concerns and know that our voice is being heard. So if you have any interest in being on the committee or would like to discuss any solid waste issues, please feel free to contact us. Chuck DeYonker from Hamilton County is currently the chairman of the Solid Waste Technical Committee, and I am sure he would be glad to have you on his committee. I have provided his contact information in the event that you would be interested. And so with that, I believe I am finished up for today. And thank you again for listening.
Great, thank you, Dane. I do have a couple questions for you. So
Okay.
the first one is, what percentage of licensed landfills in Ohio are located in Cuyahoga County?
So as far as the transfer facilities go, is that what you're referring to?
I think so. Yeah, I think they meant transfer facilities.
Yeah, yeah, like I mentioned during my talk, we, back in the 80s and 90s, we had several municipal solid waste landfills, but over time, they all seemed to close up, and what had happened is all the transfer stations became real popular around our area. So we ended up having, in Cuyahoga County, I believe we have 10, that's including the city of Cleveland. And in the whole state, there's 61. So yeah, we do have a big percentage of them, right up here in our county.
Okay. And then we have another question that came in. What are some common issues that are found at transfer stations that inspectors should keep an eye on?
I think Heather's going to get into that a little bit in her talk. But yeah, we don't have a whole lot of problems. It doesn't seem like up here. But yeah, I think she'll get into a little more of some of the issues with that.
Okay. So I think I'll save some of these questions for Heather, and we can move on to part 2 of the overview of transfer facility inspections. We'll have Heather Grisey, a sanitarian with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health. And Heather, we're ready when you are.
Good morning. My name is Heather Grisey. I'm currently a sanitarian and work for the Cuyahoga County Board of Health. I have been employed since 2001. My main focus has been working in the water protection unit and in solid waste. Today, I will be discussing transfer station inspections and what it entails. Overall, what to look for while conducting an inspection as a reminder for those who routinely work within solid waste programs, but also to familiarize those that work in other programs. To begin the inspection, you will need to determine if it's a routine inspection or if it's a complaint. For a routine inspection, you will need to view past inspections and follow up with any needed corrections. If it's a complaint inspection, it's important to gather as much information as possible, determine if it's valid, and follow up with it. Most importantly, before beginning any type of inspection at the transfer station is being prepared by having safety equipment on hand. This includes wearing a hard hat, steel-toed boots, using safety goggles, and wearing a yellow safety vest upon entering the property, and especially entering the building where there is heavy equipment moving. It's also important to stay off your phone and be aware of your surroundings. During the inspection, it could be helpful to use the transfer station checklist, which you can get off the EPA website. It's a great reference to refer to during the inspection process. The first thing you need to check during the administrative process, the inspection portion, is making sure that there's an approved copy of a permit on site. If it applies also, make sure that you're aware of any kind of current terms and conditions and that they're being followed. Newer facilities will need a PTI or a permit to operate. Those are only applicable after initial rules became effective. Any list of alterations, that's where the owner or operator of the facility may request changes to the authorizing document. What does the contingency plan include? During the inspection, you need to speak with the operator and go over the contingency plan. This plan needs to be easily accessible in a binder and available for inspection. The date needs to be most current, updated with any new changes. What's required in the plan is how to handle unauthorized waste, burning, or dusty material. It also needs to include how to handle in an event such as a fire, explosion, or spill, or if a piece of equipment becomes inoperable. If these parameters cannot be met, then a plan needs to be in place stating how the transfer station will meet the compliance by handling and removing of solid waste. In the document, there needs to be written notification to the Ohio EPA, the local health department, and solid waste district. And if the facility is unable to accept waste, then give a general notification to customers. A written plan of action in handling leachate that cannot be managed or properly disposed of. And the final contingency would be the disposal where waste from the facility is normally taken and can no longer be accepted. The operator needs to maintain daily logs of operations. Each day, the facility needs to have the operating in chronological order of the overall operations. The forms can be either paper or electronic. The logs need to list the names, the location, and contact information. Also, the name and signature of the person entering the data. With the potential of leachate, a visual inspection needs to be done to be sure it's not making its way to clean surface water or the storm sewer. As a reminder, leachate is any water that comes in contact with solid waste. The waste handling area should not be located within 200 feet of any surface waters of the state. Many facilities control leachate from going off-site by using an oil water separator or discharging to the sanitary sewer. It's also vital to check the sewer grates for any potential blockages and the oil water separator that it's being properly maintained. Posted instructions are crucial. Instructions are to be at the entrance of the transfer station with a list of prohibited wastes. The signage needs to be in good repair and easily legible. A list of prohibited waste includes hazardous waste, asbestos-containing waste material, radioactive waste, untreated infectious waste, waste containing liquids, tires, tree stumps, batteries, yard waste, oil, and large pieces of concrete. Also, it's important to be sure that all emergency contacts are up to date and accurate. What fire equipment is needed? Indicate during the inspection the type of fire control equipment available for the facility and that it's in good working order. Some examples are a fire extinguisher, 911 service, a water truck, or like the picture on the right, a fire suppression system. While inspecting used motor oil, it's important to check the containers and above ground tanks that they're not leaking. Also make sure the containers are properly labeled with the common name used oil. It's also important to document in the daily logs the type of oil, the amount, and the destination where it's going. There should be no tires present. All tires need to be segregated from the trash and properly stored and not collecting water. They should be dry at all times. The storage container bins must have a cover and treated with larvicide or pesticides for mosquitoes. Once the bin is full, an EPA registered transporter will pick up the container. The mosquito control records are to be noted in the daily logs as well. Batteries are not to be accepted. Batteries must be separated from the regular loads and transferred to a recycling area. In addition, the batteries need to be documented in the daily logs, indicating the amount, the type, and destination. Yard waste as well may not be mixed with trash. It needs to be kept in a separate area, or some facilities have a compactor. Eventually, yard waste is sent to a compost site. The type, the amount, and destination also needs to be documented on daily logs. The owner or operator are required to maintain access roads to the transfer station during all weather conditions and reduce erosion and dust. A gate needs to be provided to prevent unauthorized access during non-operating hours. Also, it's important that clear instructions are posted at the gate stating a list of prohibited types of waste, yard waste restrictions, and current emergency contacts. The emergency contacts need to be included are the fire department, local health department, local law enforcement, and the Ohio EPA emergency 24-hour spill. During the waste handling inspection, floors need to be properly maintained on a daily basis by controlling dust, odors, and vectors with adequate equipment on site. This includes regular cleaning and disinfecting of surfaces. To prevent rodent harborage, an integrated pest control management should be in place by using baiting stations and traps as needed. Far as litter that's being scattered, it's important that it's being picked up on a daily basis as needed. Also making sure tarps are secured on the trucks and perimeter landscaping is provided to catch any airborne litter. With the design of the waste floor, it should be constructed in preventing infiltration of leachate into the ground. The floor should be sloped to direct the leachate towards collection points and not allowing any ponding. To prevent any kind of odors, a general rule should be the operation procedures can help by first in, first out waste handling to keep on-site trash on the garage floor for short periods of time. Also, watering and deodorizing systems can be helpful as well. Requirements for newly constructed or modified facility include changes after April 1st of 2017. Some of those changes include waste handling areas need to be enclosed. The floors need to be designed to handle large loads, force and demands, and a leachate collection. So at the end of the survey, you need to discuss with the person in charge the findings and provide a copy of the inspection within 30 days, if not sooner. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Once again, my name is Heather Grise with my phone number listed below. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Heather. So we do have a couple questions. The first one I am seeing is, it says, you mentioned yard waste cannot be mixed with trash. Is this referring to bagged yard waste that may be loose, or is it a combination of the two?
Thank you, Leanne. The answer would be both, actually. If it could be identified as yard waste, then it's supposed to be separated out, and it is required to go to a compost site. Follow that, then making sure that the facility is documenting it on the daily log.
Okay. And then we'll kind of follow up with the question that had came in during some of the other presentations. What are some of the common issues that are found at transfer stations for inspectors?
We don't tend to get a lot of complaints within our jurisdiction. Occasionally we can get odor complaints, and then we'll go out on the complaint to make sure how they're taking care of the problem and what the culprit is to it. Also, it could be a rodent harborage. So you tend to see rats on the floors of the transfer stations. So we make sure that they have an integrated pest management control practice in place. Most of our facilities are contracted out with a pest control company to do that. So bait boxes are placed on the floor within the transfer station with bait to take care of the rats. We also tend to have problems with the raccoons getting up into the rafters and tearing up the rafters as well. So making sure that those are being managed. And then along also with the tires, especially if they're stored outside, if there's not tarps on them, if water tends to get in the tires, then that could create a mosquito problem. So we have to make sure that the water's being dumped out. The covers are being kept on top, and larvicides placed in the water if they can't get all the water out to prevent those from turning into full-grown mosquitoes.
Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions at the moment, so thank you to you and Dane. And then we will move on to our last segment. We have Chris Jaquette, and he's going to provide a waste industry perspective of transfer facilities. Chris is the Director of Engineering and Environmental Affairs at Rumpke Waste and Recycling Services. Chris, we're ready for you.
Thank you for having me today. I'm Chris Jaquette. I'm the Director of Environmental Affairs and Engineering with Rumpke Waste and Recycling. For today's agenda, I'm going to be providing the waste industry perspective on transfer stations. So I'll move through a little bit about where I'm from and why I'm talking to you today, what the transfer station is and what service it provides, why the waste industry likes transfer stations and has it critical in our model, how to operate a compliant transfer station, setting criteria, and then also some questions and answers. A little bit about Rumpke. We've been in business for over 90 years. We're one of the largest firms in North America. More importantly, why I'm talking to you today is we're specifically in the Midwest, founded in Ohio, and then expanding to Kentucky, Indiana, and West Virginia. We are a fully integrated operation, which means we pick up waste from your home or business and then move that waste or recycling to a transfer station or recycling facility or landfill for final disposal. Rumpke owns or operates 14 landfills, 12 recycling facilities, and 24 transfer stations. We have nearly 4,000 employees, and our mission includes safe and compliant operations as our primary pieces. We do that through customer service and partnering with the communities that we operate in. Transfer stations are permitted and regulated facilities. As Annette spoke to earlier, there are laws and regulations that show how these are to be built and how they are to be operated. They are considered the best available technology for how waste is collected and moved to its final location. What they serve is that they consolidate loads from the collection vehicles you see in your neighborhoods into larger transfer trailers to more efficiently haul that waste or recycling the distance to the regional landfill or recycling center. It's critical to understand that no waste is disposed of at these facilities. Waste and recycling are continuously transferred off-site in a first in, first out basis. Transfer stations are located to provide a convenient disposal location to communities, citizens, and businesses. Recycling centers and landfills are looked at as regional service destinations. They can't be located close to every business and citizen, nor is it optimal to locate them there. Transfer stations provide that local resource to conveniently get to so that it can promote proper disposal and recycling. So why do they exist? They can lower the cost of service to the residents and the businesses in an area. Costs are lowered based on increasing competition. With landfills and recycling centers being regional facilities, if only that regional provider were in an area, that would decrease competition. Transfer stations are often co-located with a hauling company, therefore providing increased competition to collect the waste and recycling in an area. This local presence provides a facility for the solid waste district, residents, and businesses to have close access. Also, being local provides less truck traffic. The vehicles are then able to stay in the communities, providing the service of collecting that waste rather than having to drive the distance to the regional facility. By allowing those trucks to stay local, we lower the carbon footprint. We have to have less trucks on the road, and that equals less emissions. Also, by being local, this provides a close location for recycling drop-off. Recycling then becomes more accessible and convenient to the communities where a transfer station is present. I think it's also quick to note that transfer stations provide a positive economic boost to a community. These facilities are often located in vacant land, or at least provide a large improvement to the land that they are placed on. Transfer stations and hauling companies are multi-million dollars invested into a community. This increased land value increases the tax revenue. They also, as noted earlier, provide competition that results in a cost avoidance or savings for residences and business in that community. And these areas can have up to 50 jobs at them if a hauling facility is located with that transfer facility, increasing the income tax for that community. They also generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in local spending. All those additional people will be stopping at the local gas stations and restaurants and businesses as part of their workday. Rumpke also then invests more into the community through fuel, parts to repair the vehicles, and other things as tires and services. We'd like to show a few pictures of some of the facilities we've recently built. This facility was just finished in Georgetown, Kentucky. This is one of the co-located hauling and transfer stations that I discussed, therefore having offices in the front of the facility for administrative staff, management, salespeople, and a break room for the workers. It then moves into the maintenance bays for the trucks at that hauling company, with the transfer station located in the rear of the facility. This facility is currently under construction in Bloomington, Indiana. This is also a co-located facility. A few items I'd like to point out are the citizens boxes in the front. This is what we discussed on earlier of having them located away from the normal operation in a safe location. And it also provides that local and convenient location for waste and recycling. Next would be the hauling operation you see here, which is separate at this facility, with the offices in the front again and the bays for maintenance in the back. All waste has to cross a scale in and out. And then it moves to the transfer station. This facility will also be co-located with a recycling center, which will move baled recyclables to their next use, and the waste will be located out and come to the local regional landfill. This is a conceptual design for another facility we are currently working to site. Again, this is a co-located facility with the hauling company in the front, the transfer station in the rear, the scale with the truck traffic, a citizens area for their convenience, and safety to be away from the commercial operation of the transfer station. I'd also like to note that we have a YouTube channel with many videos, one of which is a specific transfer station video showing the operation of a transfer station. Transfer stations have to be operated in a compliant manner. We do this through consistent cleaning of the facility. As noted earlier, there are rules and regulations that we must follow to operate these facilities. To be in compliant, we have to keep them clean, dry, free of odors, vectors, and litter. We maintain this by ensuring efficient scale operations with well-planned traffic flow patterns. As noted in the pictures earlier, everything has to cross a scale, both in and outbound. We try to always keep the citizens in their own safe unloading area, separate from the commercial unloading area for the larger vehicles, and keep those truck paths clearly identified with as limited crossing as possible. Again, safety is paramount with Rumpke. We do this for regular training. We provide mock inspections of our facilities to make sure we are maintaining or exceeding compliance. And these mock inspections often focus on safety procedures to make sure our employees are following the training they've been given. It is paramount at Rumpke to maintain and exceed compliance. We do this through regular inspections and invite inspections of our facilities. We use software tracking systems to assure that our paperwork is kept up to date and all permits and licenses are applied for and followed in a timely manner. We've also had to include fire prevention technology at many of our facilities. This has early heat detection and quick extinguishing of load fires. We've seen in the news lately many truck and load fires. These load fires occur on the street, at transfer facilities, our recycling facilities, and the landfills. The batteries we use in our everyday life have found their way into our waste stream instead of going to the proper battery recycling facility. And these batteries, when damaged, create a lot of heat and result in fires. This also means we have to have a heightened focus on our wastewater and stormwater management. With these extinguishing systems, all of the water must maintain in the transfer facility. This water has to be collected in the transfer facility and moved to a wastewater treatment plant for proper treatment and disposal. Also, all the water outside of the facility must also be collected and moved to detention basins that are tested to make sure that it is clean and acceptable for discharge into the surface waters of the state. Siting criteria when we look at these new facilities is number one, traffic. That is a major concern for both the community and Rumpke. What is the current traffic in the area and what kind of traffic will we be adding to that area? As part of this traffic, we need to look at the roadways, the distance to the major highways so that we can quickly and efficiently get our traffic into the interstate system and then move that waste or recycling to those regional landfill or recycling centers. Once we see the traffic, we need to look at zoning and what the local officials want and need in their areas. Neighbors are obviously very apprehensive of transfer facilities coming to their locations in their communities. So we need to work with those local officials to put this in the proper area and work with the communities to educate them on what the facility will be, what it will look like, and how it will operate. We also look to add a competitive landscape with new transfer or recycling facilities where we could provide value to those communities by being another service provider. Or we look at our existing service areas and our existing business. How can we provide value and better service to our customers that we already have by siting a facility like this? Setback requirements are also a major item that we need to consider, as well as the hours of operation that are allowed to take place in that community. We further need to look at what kind of landscaping and buffer views we can provide to make this facility appeasing to a community. As you can see in the picture to the right, we proposed many trees to help soften the view, as well as a curving entrance so that as you pass this facility on the road, you aren't looking back at a lot of collection vehicles and transfer trailers. And as spoken to earlier, what is the economic impact to the community? What kind of tax base improvement can we bring through this multi-million-dollar investment, the extra employment with having a facility like this, and the extra spending that these businesses do in that local community? Thank you very much for allowing me to present today. I would now like to take any questions.
All right. Thank you, Chris. So the first question I have is, Do you take special waste or sludges at your transfer stations?
Rumpke policy is not to take either of these at our transfer stations. As you know, the prior presenters spoke to, and as I touched on, there are a lot of rules and regulations, and some of the big ones are just the cleanliness and odors. And by taking these, it only provides more hurdles to be in compliant. So our policy is to take these directly from the location to the regional landfill.
Okay. Then I have another one. What is the biggest objection you hear from the public?
Their biggest worry when we look to site these is the traffic. They're very concerned about more trucks going to a transfer station, and then the semis that would then be leaving from there. That's why it's very important to put these in the right location in a heavy industrial area that already has a lot of this type of traffic, and to do a proper traffic study so that we have the information to share with the residents that it will fit in this area. It will not be a burden to them, but the traffic is by far the biggest concern that we hear.
Okay. And I have one more at the moment. What do you do with water on the site?
You know, it's very important to clean these. So inside the facility, any liquids that hit the floor, as Annette spoke to, you know, with a lot of focus on the construction of that floor to protect any kind of seepage, but you need to keep that clean as well. So we wash that down, and all of that water goes to a local municipality wastewater treatment center for full treatment. Outside the building, we make sure all the litter is kept up, and we sweep the paved areas with street sweepers. Those are disposed of also at either a wastewater treatment center for a liquid sweeping, or the solids are moved to a landfill. Once those are kept clean, though, those areas go to the said basins, which have an NPDES permit, which follows the Federal Clean Water Act, requiring testing before that water can leave the facility.
Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions, so thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
And we want to thank everyone for attending today's Transfer Facility 101 workshop, and thank you to all of our great presenters. If there were any questions that we were not able to get answered during today's presentation, someone from Ohio EPA's central office or your local district office will be reaching out to answer those questions. And if you have any more that pop up during the next few hours when you think back to this webinar, please be sure to reach out to your local inspector, and they will be glad to help answer those questions as it relates to transfer facilities. Just a reminder before we end today's workshop, an hour and a half of CEUs for registered environmental health specialists were requested from Ohio Department of Health. If you want to receive credits for this workshop, you must complete the survey posted in the live Q&A. If you're not able to access the survey, email myself or Jeff Montavon. Our emails are also in the live Q&A. And today's training will be added to an online learning plan for local health departments. Through the OHID Citizens Portal, local health department staff can register for Ohio EPA's Health Department Training Plan that's located in the Ohio Learn app. The training plan includes past workshops hosted by Ohio EPA, and there'll be new workshops added in the future. Training is available online and can be completed at your convenience. When completing today's course survey, there is an option you may select to be added to the Health Department training plan. Simply click the box to opt in and provide your email address. Local health department staff must have an OHID account to access the training. If you don't have an account and would like to sign up for the training, we can send you instructions on creating the account, and we can also follow up with instructions on accessing the Health Department training plan once the OHID account is created in the Ohio Learn app has been requested. These learning plans are great educational opportunities for both new and experienced solid waste inspectors. And with that, we are done with today's Transfer Facility 101 workshop. Thank you.